New York in the 1960s wasn't just a city, it was a living, breathing organism where 8 million people moved through rituals and routines that defined what it meant to be a New Yorker. From the subway tokens jingling in coat pockets to the newspaper stands on every corner, daily life followed rhythms that feel impossibly distant today. This was the decade when the city transformed from post-war optimism into something grittier, more complex, and undeniably electric. Morning routines began at newsstands where vendors knew customers by name and their preferred publications. The New York Times, Daily News, Herald Tribune, and Post competed fiercely for attention, each offering distinct perspectives on the same swirling city. Men in fedoras and women in headscarves would grab multiple papers, tucking them under arms while fishing for exact change. Subway cars transformed into mobile reading rooms where passengers disappeared behind broadsheets. Commuters developed the peculiar skill of folding newspapers into narrow columns, allowing them to read in crowded spaces without elbowing neighbors. The classified sections held particular fascination: apartment listings that seem laughable today, job opportunities requiring only high school diplomas. Office workers kept papers on desks throughout the day, checking updates during lunch breaks. The evening papers brought fresh perspectives on morning stories, creating a continuous news cycle that felt immediate. Those inky pages connected millions of strangers through common knowledge and mutual concerns. The 15-cent token represented more than fare payment. It was a physical symbol of New York citizenship carried everywhere. Pockets and purses always contained at least 2 tokens. Insurance against being stranded anywhere in the 5 boroughs. Token clerks sat in bulletproof booths, sliding tokens through metal trays while making change with practiced efficiency. Rush hour lines stretched down station corridors as commuters waited to convert bills into tokens. Children received tokens as allowances, learning subway navigation as essential life skills. Losing tokens felt catastrophic. Those small brass discs represented mobility and independence in ways younger generations cannot comprehend. Turnstiles clanked with satisfying mechanical certainty as tokens dropped through slots. The sound announced participation in the great democratic project of public transportation, where bankers and janitors passed through identical gates. The tokens accumulated stories, weddings attended, job interviews completed, first dates navigated. Public telephones occupied every corner, their ringing frequently answered by strangers who'd shout into the street searching for intended recipients. The phenomenon created spontaneous community interactions. People actually responded to random ringing payphones, then attempted to locate whoever the caller sought. Busy intersections would suddenly pause as someone bellowed a name, hoping the person happened to be within earshot. Making calls required preparation pockets full of dimes, phone numbers memorized or scribbled on paper scraps. Telephone booths provided minimal privacy, conversations happening in glass boxes while pedestrians passed inches away. Important calls happened from payphones, job offers accepted, relationships ended, emergencies reported. Certain payphones achieved neighborhood fame for reliable connections or advantageous locations. Drug dealers, bookies, and businessmen all relied on specific phones, creating invisible territories and unwritten schedules. Parents instructed children to call from particular payphones when arriving at destinations. Horn and hard art locations dotted Manhattan, offering hot meals dispensed from gleaming chrome and glass compartments. Customers inserted nickels into slots, turned knobs, and retrieved macaroni and cheese or pie slices from individual glass-fronted compartments. The system eliminated waitstaff, replacing service with mechanical efficiency that somehow felt democratic. The restaurants attracted everyone: businessmen grabbing quick lunches, elderly people stretching fixed incomes, families treating children to novelty dining. The democratic seating arrangements meant anyone might sit beside anyone, tables hosting unplanned conversations between strangers. The coffee, dispensed from dolphin-headed spouts, achieved legendary status. Automats functioned as informal social centers where people lingered over 5-cent coffee. The spaces welcomed everyone without judgment. Pensioners nursing single cups for hours, teenagers on dates with limited budgets, night shift workers seeking hot meals. Children pressed faces against compartment windows, marveling at the mechanical displays. Sidewalks doubled as stages, where musicians, acrobats, and poets claimed patches of concrete as temporary theaters. Washington Square Park hosted folk singers with guitars, their audiences sitting cross-legged on grass while protest songs drifted through elm trees. The performances weren't scheduled or sanctioned, they simply happened, organic expressions of the city's creative overflow. Times Square attracted different performers: three-card Monte dealers whose quick hands mesmerized tourists, sidewalk portrait artists sketching caricatures. The cacophony created sensory overload, where multiple performances competed simultaneously, each claiming attention through volume or spectacle. Children watched wide-eyed, while parents pulled them along. Subway platforms hosted musicians whose sounds echoed through tiled corridors. The acoustics transformed mediocre players into something approaching magical, their music accompanying daily commutes with unexpected beauty. Commuters developed favorites, deliberately timing arrivals to catch particular musicians. Double features dominated neighborhood theaters, where audiences could escape into air-conditioned darkness for entire afternoons. The admission price included 2 films, newsreels, cartoons, and sometimes live stage shows, creating entertainment marathons. Theaters operated continuously, allowing patrons to enter mid-film and stay through the next showing. The theaters smelled of popcorn and disinfectant, their worn velvet seats holding decades of audiences. Matinee showings attracted mothers with children, elderly couples on fixed-income dates, teenagers skipping school, and shift workers. The darkness offered democratic anonymity, where everyone temporarily forgot their circumstances. Weekend audiences talked back to screens, creating call and response dynamics. Action sequences prompted cheers, while villains received vocal condemnation. Ushers patrolled aisles with flashlights, maintaining order without crushing spontaneity. Those flickering images transported viewers beyond borough boundaries. Corner candy stores and soda fountains served egg creams, the unofficial drink of New York, containing neither eggs nor cream. The concoction combined chocolate syrup, milk, and seltzer in specific proportions, debated with religious fervor by neighborhood loyalists. Each fountain claimed superior technique, with customers traveling blocks to patronize their preferred establishment. Soda jerks performed the mixing with theatrical flair, squirting seltzer with precise timing to create the perfect foam head. The hiss of carbonation and the chocolate aroma signaled something quintessentially New York, a flavor that couldn't be replicated elsewhere. Drinking egg creams meant perching on spinning counter stools while engaging in neighborhood gossip. Hot summer afternoons saw lines forming at soda fountains, customers desperate for cold, fizzy relief. The drinks represented affordable luxury during an era when air conditioning remained rare. Those chocolate mustaches and satisfied sighs became part of the city's shared sensory memory. What's inside an egg cream? Summer nights drove residents upward, seeking relief from sweltering apartments where oscillating fans merely circulated hot air. Rooftops transformed into social spaces where neighbors gathered on folding chairs, creating temporary villages above the street-level chaos. Families brought radios tuning to Mets games, the announcer's voice drifting across rooftops. The view from 6 stories up revealed the city's horizontal expanse water towers, punctuating skylines, adjacent rooftops hosting their own gatherings. Adults drank beer from bottles while discussing politics, sports, and neighborhood changes, with the frankness darkness permitted. Teenagers claimed corners for awkward romances, their silhouettes visible against the ambient city glow. Some New Yorkers actually slept on roofs during heat waves, trusting neighborhood watch to maintain safety. Those hours above the streets created memories of the city viewed from unexpected angles, where summer heat became tolerable through elevation and community. Brooklyn still operated trolley lines through the early 60s, the streetcars clanging along tracks embedded in asphalt. the vehicles represented fading transportation technology, their presence increasingly anachronistic as buses and subways dominated. Older residents preferred trolleys for their smooth rides and nostalgic connections to earlier decades. The trolleys moved deliberately through streets, their pace matching an earlier era's rhythms, refusing to hurry despite the city's acceleration. Passengers watched neighborhoods slide past through windows, the streetcar's route creating linear tours through immigrant communities and industrial zones. Children pressed faces against windows, waving at pedestrians who waved back. The final trolley routes disappeared by 1963, replaced by buses that lacked the streetcar's charm. The removal of tracks left scars in streets, ghost impressions of vanished infrastructure. Those who'd ridden them carried memories of specific conductors and the particular sway of streetcars navigating curves. Streets transformed into ball fields, where sewers became bases and painted boxes on brick walls defined strike zones. Stickball required only a broomstick, pink rubber ball, and willing participants' equipment accessible to even the poorest neighborhoods. The games erupted spontaneously, continuing until darkness or parental calls ended play. Spectators watched from stoops and fire escapes, offering commentary and keeping score. The sport developed its own mythology, legendary players whose hits reached impossible distances, tragic balls lost down subway grates. The street games created neighborhood identity and hierarchies based purely on athletic skill. Parents tolerated stickball because it kept children visible and occupied. The games taught urban survival skills, dodging traffic, negotiating with neighbors, settling disputes without adult intervention. The crack of broomstick meeting rubber ball became summer's soundtrack, echoing down concrete canyons. Lower East Side streets, filled with pushcarts where vendors sold everything from pickles to fabrics. The outdoor markets created sensory overload, shouting merchants, haggling customers, the smell of brine mixing with fresh bread and roasting chestnuts. Shopping meant navigating crowded sidewalks where vendors competed for attention through volume and personality. Each pushcart specialized in particular goods, with customers developing fierce loyalties to specific vendors. The transactions involved negotiation rather than fixed prices, with housewives expected to haggle as part of the ritual. Vendors knew their regular customers' preferences, setting aside choice items for valued patrons. The pushcart culture represented old-world commerce surviving in modern America. Vendors worked grueling hours, pushing carts to locations at dawn and staying until inventory sold or daylight faded. The markets gradually disappeared as supermarkets and regulations forced vendors elsewhere, taking with them a direct connection to immigrant New York. Transistor radios became constant companions, small enough to carry everywhere, yet powerful enough to connect listeners to the city's pulse. WABC and WMCA dominated the AM dial, disc jockeys like Cousin Brucey becoming as famous as the musicians they played. The tinny sound quality didn't matter. What mattered was mobility, the ability to carry music and news anywhere. Teenagers clutched transistor radios like lifelines, earpieces allowing private listening that parents couldn't monitor. The devices enabled youth culture to exist independently, teenagers developing their own musical tastes without adult oversight. Baseball games accompanied subway rides, work shifts, and summer nights on stoops. The static-filled broadcasts connected listeners to something larger than their immediate surroundings. News bulletins interrupted music with updates on Vietnam, civil rights, and local emergencies, creating shared awareness across the sprawling city. Those small plastic boxes represented technological liberation, freeing New Yorkers from stationary entertainment and creating soundtracks for daily life. The daily rituals that defined 1960s New York created shared experiences binding millions of strangers into something approaching community. If these forgotten moments of New York history resonated with you, subscribe to keep discovering the everyday magic that once defined America's greatest city.